This is one of the most annoying moments in an activewear brand's launch. And if you're a startup founder, you will most likely face it yourself if you make these mistakes. You launch a product and every single person around you has been telling you for months that it's the best product and it's the best thing since sliced bread. But the issue is, you post it, you run ads against it, but the sales don't come. Why is this? Well, in this episode, we are going to be outlining why designing for yourself as an activewear brand owner, designing with ego ultimately brings with it more ego as opposed to sales. You'll look at how your own personal bias can impact your judgment and how it prevents you from making the best-selling products that other founders and other industry leaders are creating. 2, you'll understand why positive feedback, especially when it comes from a biased set, doesn't necessarily equal proper market research and proper input. And we'll learn ultimately how to build products that are based on what sells, not just what strokes your ego and makes you feel better as a founder. So without further ado, we'll get right into it. My name is Shadi. I am the co-founder and the creative director of FittDesign, the world's first sportswear fashion design agency. And we work with brands from all over the world to help them design, develop, and produce clothing. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Number 1 is that you have designed the product for yourself. And let me get this straight, is that it is natural for you as a startup founder to design a product for yourself. Because at the end of the day, you understand your needs better than you understand the needs of anyone else. You live in your body and you have your mind. But ultimately, the truth here is that just because you like it doesn't mean that your core consumer, your customer avatar is going to share these same ideas unless they are twins of you and identical. And even then, you'll understand that people have differing opinions. So when you design solely based on your personal experience, it can provide a nice, unique touch to the product. But if you don't take into account the opinions and the market research of others, then you're not going to create a product that impacts a variety of people. So if you create a product that you're the only customer for, then you're going to end up purchasing from your own stock. So make sure that you ask yourself, did I build this product for myself? And is this something that someone else would wear when it comes to their day-to-day? 2, did I actually study what my ideal customer would like to buy? What's in their wardrobe, as opposed to just simply looking selfishly inwards and looking at my own wardrobe and my own needs? Number 2 is that you get feedback, but you only get biased feedback from your inner circle and from people around you. At the end of the day, as the old saying goes, when you're in an echo chamber, all you hear is the sound of your own voice. So make sure that when you're getting feedback and when you're gathering data, it's important to get the opinions of a trusted board of advisors, of people that will tell it to you like it is, not simply people who are going to tell you what you want to hear. At the same time, if you only also target the people in your inner circle, you might find it difficult to get a non-biased feedback off your product, because even if it's a great product, it might very well be that it's people within your group that share similar values and similar tastes to what you want, and that market size may not be large enough to propagate or to properly get an accurate read on what the market wants. 2, they may not be telling you the truth because they don't want to hurt your feelings. So ask yourself, who did I ask? Did I ask a neutral set of people who don't understand or don't have context on my brand and are willing to give me clear and concise and proper feedback? Or did I ask people who might not want to hurt my feelings or might share overly similar opinions to my own? That way I don't have a proper understanding of the market. Am I asking my friends, my families, people within the same orbit as me? They'll tell you it looks amazing, but ultimately the feedback that you're looking for is balanced feedback that is representative of the market that's actually going to buy your product, not the people who are just there to support it. Number 3 is that you design the product for aesthetics, not for performance. It's easy when designing things visually to look at what makes things beautiful. But if you don't design a product for stretchability, for comfort, for mobility, you are ultimately going to suffer when you go to market, because customers are going to expect more than just the aesthetic performance of their product. They're going to expect it to look good, to feel good. They're going to expect it to wear well over time. They're going to expect it to be durable. If they're looking for sports performance apparel, they're going to expect it to meet the needs and the demands of their product category. So ultimately, if people want compression, stretch, recovery, but you give them a product that's stiff, that doesn't retain its shape over time, that's too tight or too loose in specific motions, as great as it looks, if it doesn't do the bare essentials, then people are not going to want to buy it. Visuals bring attention, but ultimately performance gets repeat business. Next up is that you skipped the research phase and the best seller mapping. If you go into your first collection without looking at look-alike brands like your own and analyzing what products consistently perform well for them, that they have season after season, that they are categorizing as best sellers, then you are leaving a lot of data that brands have paid hundreds of millions of dollars to accrue over time, and you're not benefiting from that. So how do you do it? First of all, you create a profile for your brand. Then you get your ChatGPT or any sort of AI software to analyze for yourself what are lookalike brands that share similar consumers, that have similar targets as you. You go into those brands and you research their best sellers. You look into the past, you look into the future, and you see what their best selling products are, what their best selling sizes are, what their best selling SKUs are, and their best selling colorways are. And then ultimately, you identify the patterns in the materials, the fits, the fabrics, everything that goes into creating that product. And you look at the reviews, you look at what people are saying about those products, even if they are best sellers, and how you can improve them. Believe me when I say that it's so easy to win, and all you need to do is to take a proven bestseller and to look at the reviews, especially if it's a very popular product. It'll have a wide variety of reviews, and analyze how you can stack the deck in your favor so you can create a better version of that product. So if you end up looking at a seamless pair of leggings, and a lot of people love it, but they comment on the front rise being too long or too short, or they comment on the fabric being too not durable enough and it peels over time, or being too see-through on some of the lighter colors. Those present unique opportunities for you to go in and to take best-selling products and to give them your own touch and to make them even better. Next up is that you overcomplicate and you over-engineer product in the hopes that the more unique details that you add to your product, the more people are going to want to buy it. Early founders typically look at adding more cuts, more panels, more hidden buzzwords, more details in the fabric, more double branding, too many colorways into a product without a proven demand, and they wonder why people don't end up buying. Just because it's complicated does not necessarily mean it's premium. If that's your vibe, then lean into it. But if ultimately you're just creating a complex product for the sake of this differentiation, then it's not about how you can make a product more unique. It's simply about how you can make this product the best product that it can be to serve the customer in the best possible way. And yes, innovation is necessary. It's important to analyze your customer, to create a product set that really drives home a great experience for your customer. But sometimes less is more. And if you focus on just 2 or 3 really strong USPs when it comes to the fabric, the fit, and the aesthetic, then you are already miles ahead of the competition. And you reverse engineer the complaints of customers that we discussed in the previous step, and you find out how to make your product better than anyone else's on the market. So how do we fix it? Well, this is going to be a step-by-step in terms of what you can do today to completely revolutionize the way that you develop garments. Before we get into that, if you guys are looking to get help designing, developing, and manufacturing your own collection, if you want to go from a physical or an idea to a physical sample in under 30 days, you can check the link in the description to work with us one-on-one. We're taking on applications, and you can book a call with me and my team. And if we feel like we're a good fit, we'll invite you to work with us. So let's get right into how you can fix your product development strategy so that you can create quality products. Number 1 is, let us look at defining our customer. Few brands know who their customer is. It's the brands that really win that take the time to understand who their customer base is and where they slot in. I was looking at an interview with the owner of Bum Energy, and he was kind of distinguishing where he placed the 3D Energy, which is their new acquired brand, with their original Bum Energy. And the price point difference is $3 versus $2. And it's funny, that small difference of around 33% was stark in contrast. He wanted to target the people with Bum Energy of a product that was premium, was high end, that included a bunch of great ingredients, that had to target that specific market segment. Versus at the $2 segment, this was a segment that he saw with a wide window of opportunity, with a consumer base that wanted things like a Monster Energy drink, but we're not getting competition there. So same brand or same company, 2 different sub-brands, able to target 2 different consumer bases by genuinely understanding what type of consumer goes for a $3 energy drink and what type of consumer goes for a $2 energy drink. And I found that that was such a strong understanding of knowing your customer first and foremost and being able to hyper niche for that customer. 2 is you study your niche. Once you know your niche, you know which industry you're in, you know who your customer is, you find out what colors do they want, what fabrics do they want, what price points do they typically pay. Similar to the reference that I just gave you before. 3, you choose a set of hero products. You choose best-selling styles that are extremely popular in that space and you make them the best that they can be. Number 4, you build for performance, not for complexity. Ultimately, you create a product that just performs well from the price point, from the fit, from the design, from the aesthetic, from the fabric, from the overall functionality, and you don't overcomplicate it. And then lastly, you validate outside your circle. You create surveys, you go out into the gyms, you go out into the internet, onto Reddit, and you just ask people for their opinions in terms of what color they prefer, what sleeve type they prefer, what type of branding they prefer, what type of product they prefer, and that's how you get proper market feedback. Ultimately, it's true that founders do not fail because they lack in passion. They fail because they lack in understanding the market needs and they design with a very closed set of blinders that doesn't give them the true clarity. If your product isn't converting, it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It just means that it hasn't touched enough people and made enough people want that product through its design, through its development, to warrant that kind of trust and to warrant that kind of conversion. Designed for trust, designed for wearability, and ultimately designed for user behavior by analyzing it and knowing it upfront. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please consider smashing a massive thumbs up. It really helps us out. It keeps us motivated to keep pumping out this content. If you want to see other videos like this, comment what types of topics you want to see me cover in future episodes. Guys, I say this from the very bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Fit Design TV. Until next week's episode, stay awesome.